everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We do have a few members who sent in their regrets, but we do have a quorum. I'm declaring a quorum, so we're going to plow ahead. So, Happy New Year, everybody. Our first official meeting of 2025. So, and a reminder again that we are recording for community access, so I'm sure you're aware of that. First order of business is to approve the minutes of our last meeting on December 10th, previously distributed twice.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thank you, Debbie. We put the community forum on the agenda just in terms of, and thank you to those who were able to attend, or those of you who may have watched online afterwards. And just FYI, we are in the process, we're a little bit behind the 8 ball on this admittedly, but the link to the video is on the website. Yet to come is the actual presentation we made that night. And PMA assembled all of the questions that we had from participants on the floor that night into an FAQ. So it's a nice document, and I think when it gets posted, it'll be very helpful. So I just want to put this on the agenda just to see if anybody, Mitch.
It should be live now.
It's live now, so that's good. So everything should be there, and there is a community forum tab that people can look at. So I just want to put this on the agenda just to see if anybody had any questions, comments, concerns, feedback that we need to address. This will be the first, obviously, of several. We told the folks that night that we would be probably looking at sometime in April as the next step in our community outreach about what's going on in the project. So I'll just open it up quickly if anybody has anything. Scott?
So I did get some feedback from some people, even my age, not just older people, that said they didn't know about it, especially people that weren't on Facebook. And they were like, is there anywhere it can be printed in? Or something like that, where like they could go to the town hall, or like how can they get notified if they're not on Facebook or social media? So otherwise I thought it was pretty good.
So we did put it on a district Facebook page. We sent an email to all families, but I understand it's not going to get to everyone in town. I think we could use that West Bridgewater magazine publication as long as we know enough in advance to put it into that. I'm open to other suggestions of places we can put it as well.
Like the town hall, they can pick up a flyer or something. I don't know. Like I said, even like I said, most of the people I know are on social media, so for them not to know.
Let me look to our select board representative. So what's the process on a public hearing? Just any public hearing? I mean, obviously there's a notice that goes out to abutters and things like that, but in terms of just posting.
Well, it's on the town calendar.
Right.
Everything's on the town calendar.
Which this was too.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, other than that, I don't really know that we have a process for that. I mean, if you guys want to make a flyer for the next one, I'm sure that people can pick them up in town hall. Have them available there.
Yeah, there's no more like mailers
But
anymore.
yeah, I mean,
So,
yeah. And I don't think anybody would pay attention to
No,
it
yeah.
anyway. So
Yeah. But that really was the only complaint. Some some older people
Yeah.
that aren't on social media said,
Yeah, it's
I
good.
didn't know about it.
Mark, is that something you could put on the sign outside the high school?
I think it
It
was
was out there.
Okay.
It was out there. And did you see some of the complaints on Facebook? I didn't know about it. I don't go past the high school. I never looked that way.
It was blue too.
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah. It wasn't just a regular note. Yeah.
It was too bright.
yeah.
So I was like, people were talking like, I never see it. I'm like, well, what do you want me to do?
Once the new site is up
Yeah.
and running, we do have the ability to put the alerts on the front page. Granted, we're not there yet, but for future reference.
For the
there will
town
be
site.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
All right, we'll look it all up.
If anyone does say that they didn't know about it and they didn't hear about it, ask them how they could hear about it. What's a good way to reach you for the next one?
Yep. Where are you looking?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. PM update. Mitch?
All right, here we go. Good evening, everybody. This is Steve again. I think first topic here is just our financial update. Since the last time we've met, we have 3 invoices to go over. Those are HFH number, I can't read that from here, but the 4228, it looks like, and 4265, both for $66,000. And then we have a PMA invoice number 8 for $9,000 and change.
9,980.
9,980. So those are the 3 invoices since the last time we met that have yet to be approved by this committee. We are still tracking on our budget, and we have no concerns with that. Everything's in line.
So Kathy's not here tonight, so I usually look to her to give a nod of approval, but if she had any concerns, she would have raised them, and she hasn't.
She has not.
Either one of us, so.
I have a question.
Question.
So I went through the packet and everything, and I may not have like seen it in the past, the invoices, but I wasn't finding the invoices in the packet. Did I miss them being sent out?
So we send them over to select people on an email, Mark, Kathy, and then I forget.
I think Scott, is Scott on there?
Yep.
Is it possible to include those in the packet going forward so that we can see those as well?
Yeah, I
So
don't
we
see
know
any-
what we're voting on? I'd like to just put
Sure,
eyes on
that's
it.
fine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It becomes more of an, and David Gagny's not here tonight, but he had a similar question in the past, and to me, it becomes more of an issue if we ever get to construction, when it gets more complicated with all the subs and the general contractor, and you got a lot of different kinds of invoices. For feasibility, we basically have a PMA invoice and a HMFH invoice that's going to be basically the same every time it gets submitted through the duration of feasibility. So
Okay, yeah, I just want to have eyes on it.
that's fine, it can be part of the information, sure. Any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion to accept the financial update.
Move. Second.
Any other concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thanks, Mitch.
All right, I'll hand it over to James and Stephanie.
Hi. So, as maybe you know, we are moving into a second phase of the feasibility study. We submitted the preliminary design program to the MSBA, and the last time we met with you, you voted for us to submit it. We've not received comments yet from the MSBA, but we will.
So are we within, I mean, they have a stated time frame of when they're supposed to respond. Are we within that time frame or outside that time frame?
Oh, we're outside of their 14 days, I believe. I believe it's 14 days that they have to respond to us
Okay.
for the PDD comments.
Just want to note that for the record.
I think that's
But that kind of puts the close on that first part of the feasibility study, pending comments. And the purpose for that phase is to narrow down the options, which we did. We're now moving into the preferred schematic report. That's the second part of the feasibility study. And the goal for that is to further explore and improve an option that will be the single option that we'll move forward with into the design phases, into schematic design, design development, and then construction documents and construction. It's a 4-month phase, January through May 1st, so 4 months. And this is our first meeting within that phase, our preferred schematic report number 1. You may remember the work plan from the PDP. This work plan is very similar. It may adjust as we go forward if we're asked to bring things to the next meeting, or depending on the information we get from this committee, the agendas within here will change. But today's our first meeting. We'll be looking at the work plan and the PSR goals, what we're doing now. We'll review the site testing program. We've had a lot of people, consultants on site, testing soils, etc. I'll go through that. We'll review options for the pre-K through 4 and pre-K through 6. And we'll be reviewing the Howard School's capacity to serve just the 5th and 6th grade, should the 4th grade be taken out. That's PSR meeting 1, that's today. We'll have 6 more meetings, so again, first and third Tuesdays, and you can see those here. We also have, we're planning for...
Second and fourth Tuesday.
What did I say?
First and third.
Sorry, second and fourth Tuesdays, excuse me. We also have, you can see here, a sustainability charrette that we're planning. I believe February 17th is the vacation week, so that's actually going to change likely to the next week, and we've got to schedule that. The goal for that will be to develop goals around energy and sustainability for a project. And there will be a couple of those throughout the process. You can see, our bi-weekly meetings continuing. I'm not going to go through the agenda for each one. You guys have this packet, so you can review them. And then there will be, we're planning on a second community forum, TBD date, April Fool's Day. And the idea will be that at that community forum, we'll be able to present initial costs from the second round of cost analysis. First, we'll be presenting them to you on that SBC meeting on March 25th, and then we'll be bringing them to the community before the next meeting on April 8th, where you're asked to vote to select which option moves forward, so that you'll have an opportunity for public input before that vote.
And I would add to, so that by that point of this process, we will have narrowed down, is this project going to be a K to 4 or is it a K to 6? Because that will need to be decided before we move into schematic design.
That's the goal, is to come to one option, which means one enrollment, new versus ad reno. Like, we'll be moving into schematic design with one option. Any comments or questions on that? People had a chance to look at that from the packet? Okay. Then I'm going to keep going into site investigation. So there's been a lot of work going on site. First of all, there was a phase 1 geo-environmental site analysis, which was, the findings were really good. There's no, what they call RECs, recognized environmental conditions. There's nothing that has to be dealt with. No underground gas tanks, things like that. So that's good. There was initial geotechnical investigations, 6 sample borings drilled across the site. What they found is shallow natural soil, which is great for sort of simple, conventional footings, building foundations, which is good because it means there's not additional cost in complications underground. Future work for that will include, once we identify a footprint, a building footprint, there'll be a much more consistent grid of borings to give sort of a more thorough picture of what's happening directly under where a new building will be, and where those foundations will fall. We had a wetland scientist walk the site, taking an initial look at the wetland lines that we had from historic data and from GIS data. Those of you who were at the public forum heard the gentleman from Concom mention that there were some wetlands on the east side of the site and some lines that weren't up to the most current lines. So this wetland scientist noted the same thing. There are a couple of small wetlands, and we're going to show you these, on the east side of the site. Also that field on the sort of northwest side of the site is wetlands as well. He calls that wetlands meadow. So one thing that's happening is our site is getting smaller as it gets divided by more wetlands. Future work will be flagging and delineation, and this again, the gentleman from Concom was mentioning. Much more detailed survey of exactly where the wetlands are and their border are now, because they do migrate over time, and then that delineation gets filed with Concom as an ANRAD. There's also been initial soil testing that we've been just getting the results of yesterday and today. The initial soil testing is to determine the perk rate and potential for wastewater treatment plant on site. They did find a high groundwater and loamy soil. There were some places where the perk rate was slow and some places where it was much better. And one of the places that we're looking, it's better. There's still work to be done to determine for sure if that location is going to work for wastewater treatment, and we're proceeding with that. Future work will include a wastewater treatment plant analysis and formal soil testing with the Board of Health if it's a wastewater treatment plant. As well as potentially, not listed here, as well as potentially a preliminary geohydraulic analysis. And that work, we're going to get a proposal for soon. The existing, we had our hazmat consultant go out and test the existing building. They did find some ACM in good condition.
You just want to explain what that is?
ACM is asbestos-containing materials. It's often on pipes and floor tiles primarily, and it's not a concern unless it's friable, which means it's kind of becoming powder and entering the air, which is not the case here. It's all in very good condition. But for any renovation work or demolition work, that material has to be abated using a special process. Guys in bunny suits,
Which is the same thing.
down
Excuse me. It's the same thing we went through with the demolition of our high school.
There are also other hazardous materials that you don't test for. You assume they're there, and then you dispose of those materials as if they're there. If you test for them now, any findings can lead to immediate action, requirements for immediate action. And then the radon levels were found to be very low, much lower than radon. And the reason we test for radon is to determine if we need a radon abatement system within a new building, and I don't believe we will in this time. Future work, again, would require abatement for any renovation or demolition work, and a little bit more testing, some destructive testing for masonry and some roof testing. We have completed a limited survey we're using for our building layouts, and there will be a full survey in future phases of the work. And there's been there's been a traffic study where they've taken the traffic counts for the school, at the roads at the school, both here and at Howard actually, and they'll be helping us in determining the traffic impacts for any future project. Any questions on site investigations?
If the wastewater treatment site turns out to not be as ideal as it looks right now, is there a backup already selected, or would you just address it every time?
I think there's there'd be a lot to figure out, and we're not there. We don't know.
But again, those of you who were there at the community forum 2 weeks ago, I felt an obligation to admit to the fact that it's not a done deal for us with either septic or wastewater at Roselle, and it may force us to go back to look at an option at the Howard School, even though we've essentially voted to eliminate that, because it might be, even though we feel constrained by that site and would have wastewater issues there, because we only have the option of pre-K to 6, so we have to do wastewater, that we may be forced to go back and look at that if we reach a dead end with the Roselle site.
Any other questions on?
Are you still looking to keep it under 10,000 gallons?
Say that again?
Are you still looking to keep it under 10,000 gallons? Or are you worried about triggering DEP and everything else?
No, a pre-K through 6 will be over 10,000 gallons and will be a wastewater treatment plant, simply by the number of heads.
Okay.
The enrollment of 1,075 plus staff plus pre-K is going to control that. And, sorry, before I go on, any other? Okay. slightly out of order. Apologize. We'll do this. So this is the existing Roselle site. We just talked about, point. We just talked, yeah. So North Elm Street again, kind of over here. Goldie coming around here. How do I do this without moving your way? Goldie over here and Crescent Street over at that end. We in previous, and then the existing Roselle building right there. This is the meadow that they found to be wetlands. There's no historic data showing it as net wetlands, but the wetland scientist was fairly adamant. So that means that septic can't go there, and a field can't go there as well. You can't disturb it, it's ground you can't disturb it. There is a wetlands crossing the site here, and there is a wetlands crossing the site in a culvert right here. All those wetlands have offsets, buffer zones, excuse me, that's what I'm looking for, buffer zones. So there's a 50-foot buffer zone you see in the dark blue line. You can't disturb anything within that 50-foot buffer zone with I think a 6,000 square foot exception, which is very small. And you have to rebuild that somewhere else. But that's kind of besides the point. But mostly you cannot disturb soil within that 50-foot line. And then the 100-foot line, if you build within the 100-foot line, you have to submit a notice of intent and file with Concom. So that's what I mean by our site's gotten smaller. You can see particularly this wetlands has compressed our site in this direction. Not being able to think about this for septic has compressed our site. And you can see the area over here, which is where we're now looking at septic or wastewater, also getting pushed.
It seems like that also impacts the idea for redesigning the driveway.
It does and it does and it doesn't. I mean, we've got some details to work out. But if we take out the road here and replicate it somewhere here, there are ways to do that through the filing and to permit that. Again, you see the 60-foot proposed neighborhood buffer. As we continue to design, we're always going to be looking to make that bigger, but that's where we are currently. Okay, so I think that following the site investigations makes sense. Now I'm going to come back to this. This is, you've seen this before. This is from the PDP, I think the last PDP presentation. This shows the 9, suddenly 9 doesn't sound right, but it is right. The 9 options that the MSBA is asking us to explore during this phase. I'm going to start with the 4 that you think are the 4 we're looking at, which primarily are. It's add reno or new at the McDonald's site for pre-K through 4, which you see with the color here. Add reno or new for 1,075 students pre-K through 6, which you see in these 2 columns. And then there are 5 other options that the MSBA has asked us to carry into this phase, primarily for, or exclusively for cost comparison purposes, so that we're still thinking about what the cost of these other options are. They include base repair at McDonald, which means leaving the building there and bringing it up to code and renovating it in place, no additions. Base repair at Spring, base repair at Howard, so that's 3. So we're at 7. And those we know, do not meet the goals of the project, do not meet the ed plan, and only achieve an outcome for the grades that are there and would be overcrowded on day 1. There's also an option for a new McDonald New project for 1 through 3 at McDonald, and a new project for 1 through 6 at McDonald, both of which you've all already voted to remove from the value. So they're there primarily for cost comparison purposes. Okay. Oh, yeah.
After you guys had the wetland scientists out at Moselle, and, you know, Gary brought up that we might have to move back towards Howard, did you guys have him walk the Howard site to say, because I know there's a wetland over there, right by the basketball court, and, you know, some drainage stuff going on there. So I don't know if you had sent him and the conservation agent over there, just, you know, so that we didn't have to do it again.
We haven't, but by the time, you know, we had the results, they were gone.
Okay.
We can, when we, you know, if, should we have to go back to that.
Yeah.
The wetlands that I know over there are just north of the new pickleball courts, is that?
Yeah, see, yeah, right by the existing basketball court and stuff over there, yeah.
Okay.
What's it called? The God mountain and stuff
I
like
think
that.
there's also the other side of the road, not where the pickleball court is, but there's some on the other side of the spring, senior center parking lot.
That's what I'm referring to.
In there,
That's right.
that's what
Yeah.
he's talking about.
Okay, I don't know, I can't
Just
picture
south of
those,
the
but
gym.
Yeah.
okay. I'm unaware of those.
We would have to look at how, we would have to go back there
Right.
and look, if we, whatever reason went down.
Yeah, say it is too small. I didn't know if you guys already, you know, you could do like 2 in 1 day or whatever, that's all.
Because our cost was, since we chose to go,
Yeah.
we're moving forward with Roselle, that's where the cost was focused on at the time.
Right. Anything else on existing site? Okay. What I'm reporting on here, we've had some productive meetings with the district, with Mark and his team. And they've been looking hard at ways to reduce the size of the building that doesn't reduce the ability to deliver the ed plan. And there have been some, and you know, the last slide I was showing showed costs. Those costs are driven primarily by square footage. So as you cut the size of the building, you're approximately proportionally saving dollars. So for the pre-K through 6, they've cut about 11,000 square feet, gross square feet. The way that they've done that is they've reduced the kindergarten classrooms from 8 to 7, which means at the full enrollment of 154 kindergartners, which is way more than you have now. How many do you have now?
Right now, our kindergarten is small, we're about 79, but we've had kindergartens well over 100, so, and that's with school choice. So the number has fluctuated, really fluctuated between 4 sections and 5 sections. 5 is now our new norm, 1 to 6, so that's where we think we'll be at soon enough, going up to potentially 6 or 7. But 8 seemed to be a bit too much for us. Again, we're not looking at the, you know, the next couple of years, we're looking 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road for available space.
So at that much larger enrollment of 154 kindergartners, it's 22 kids per classroom. And then also the next change is to reduce the number of classrooms from 38 to 40. This is to serve 921 first through 6th graders, which is the growth in enrollment. And that's about 24 students per classroom. The idea there is that it's 6 classrooms per grade. There's 6 grades, right, between 1st and 6th. 6 classrooms per grade, and then an extra 2 classrooms to accommodate any bubble that moves through the school within a particular grade.
So what we were thinking of having a bubble space available in the upper school and one in the lower school, so we can accommodate those as they move forward. That used to be the thing. We used to have a bubble class, and that could happen again in the future. Having 2 extra classrooms, potentially of 7 in the upper and 2 in the lower, seemed to be maybe too much. So reducing it down by 2 seemed to work for us.
also look to reduce the number of, within the special education category of resource rooms from 7 to 4. That was, 7 was 1 per grade, 4 is 2 per school, upper and lower. And then to reduce the number of small group rooms from 24 to 19. That's based on having one between every classroom from 1st to 6th grade. The 24, I believe, included kindergarten to 1st grade, to 6th grade, and now it's the 19 is from 1st to 6th grade, and of course there's a couple less classrooms, so that's one less too. And then within art and music, there were 3 art spaces and there were 3 music spaces, and both of those have been reduced to 2, as well as within music from 2 to 1 ensemble spaces. So you can see the square footage savings for each of those moves, again, totaling approximately 11,000 square feet of savings.
And for the art music, we felt that in the art space, we had a gallery space that we felt could be incorporated into the regular hallways or display areas, so we're moving that space, and we combine the chorus and band space, so there'll be one specific space in the upper and one in the lower school, so not a third party. Again, it made sense to make that reduction to save space and to not have extra space.
So the motivation of reducing the square footage is to try and make the building fit in this reduced area that we have, or is it a cost control?
Go for it, yeah.
I think that it's all of those, but even more so, there's always a process of right sizing, looking at what the programs are, looking for places where a space can do 2 things as a way of really making sure that you're being efficient and responsible with taxpayer dollars.
And I think we started with using the MSBA guidelines for space, and we looked at that, and so we looked at the allowable space, but then we looked and said, all right, that's allowable, but is it necessary?
Good question. How much square footage is being designated for the administrative offices currently?
Not,
The district?
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same as what they have right now, 2,300 square feet.
Yeah.
Right, and you're still determined to keep the administrative offices in the new building?
Well, I think it's, the concern would be if it was pre-K to 4, we wouldn't have room at the Howard School to put it in there, so I think that's.
But they're currently at Spring, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so staying at Spring isn't going to be an option then?
I mean, it certainly could be. Then you would have additional space, and you would lose the ability to have that space used for other purposes such as fields. But it certainly could be a consideration.
So what exactly is the resource room? What's the purpose
So
of
the resource room will be room for special education students and teachers to utilize that space. It also could be used by our EL staff for students. It's a small, I think the 600 square feet,
500.
500 square feet. So again, reducing those to 2 per upper, 2 in the upper and 2 in the lower seems much more reasonable, because they certainly can be shared spaces.
And it doesn't, we didn't take away any of our programming spaces. So any of our special education program spaces were untouched.
I just asked about that one because it seemed to be the biggest change. Reducing small group classrooms from 24 to 19 is a smaller change than 7 to 4 resource rooms.
And the small group spaces are really reflective of the classroom spaces, reducing those kind of precipitated that small space. I think that's 250 or 125?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
those are the little,
250.
like, it's like the little spaces in between the classrooms where as a general education teachers are gonna send kids to do project work, or, you know, someone has to get pulled up for speech, they can do it in there, that kind of stuff, like super, like it's small. Yeah, resource rooms would be places to go if you need a space for testing, or if you need, you know, you're gonna take a small group and do an intervention somewhere. So having 1 per grade was a little,
That's
we
where
didn't,
we had a Cadillac option that we're now sizing to something more appropriate for a Westbridge.
And again, Mary said, we're not looking at affecting our educational vision and plan. It's just reducing some of the spaces.
So when we hear public comments about how West Bridgewater is trying to get something like an Easton school, really stick it to the taxpayers, here's an example of where we're trying to not do that.
In fact, in this conversation, we talked about on those tours, walking through the buildings and seeing these beautiful spaces that were used, and how we want to make sure that we are building a building that we are going to use. And so having, 3 art rooms, 3 music rooms sounds great, but is anybody going to use that space?
I mean, our goal is to have spaces used throughout the day. And, I think MSBA, at least when we built this, wants spaces used for at least 80% of the day. So that's the goal. If it's sitting there not being used or only periodically, it's really not well thought out space. And I think this is part of our discussion. We'll continue to look at it. I know Stephanie's going to put together some grade level mapping that we can look at each space and see how much available space is there, and we can go back and revisit this again.
But doing this within the context of not trying to go back to MSBA and recertify design enrollments. We leave the design enrollments the way they are because they do allow for growth over an extended period of time, but we sharpen our pencil on the actual space to be able to still meet the intent of all the needs of those design enrollments, but perhaps just within a smaller footprint.
So I was looking through the slideshow that Mark sent out, and I know it was just a sketch that you guys had done about the different, K-4, K-6, and I noticed that the gym space was really small. Now, I know it's just a sketch, you could write any amount you wanted on it. It would be 10,000 square feet, you could write 100,000 square feet. But the way the sketch showed it, it was actually very small and kind of in the middle of the building. So my concern is we already have 2 small outdated gyms between the Roselle.
You might have.
No, go ahead.
And you might have been looking at the multi-purpose room, which would have been a smaller gym space. So that's in addition to the 6,000 square foot gym.
Okay.
But the
6,000
gym-
still sounds small. How big, do you guys know how big the high school gym is? That's about 150 by 100.
It's 12,000.
Yeah.
That's the limit for our middle senior high school.
Right,
And so
right.
we presented,
I just think going the extra mile for the gym.
We went down this path, you may not have been here, Scott, but we went down this path
Okay.
with the
so
gym.
so the existing gyms are 3,700 square feet. This gym is 12,000.
Right, yeah.
We did show what a 6,000 square foot gym can be.
Okay.
I don't remember the date of that.
I might have done the meeting.
But it's there. So if you go back
Okay, I'll
on
take
the
a look at
website
that.
and look at any of them you missed.
Okay.
So the point is, it'll be significantly bigger than
Yeah.
either of the 2.
It's like 2 of the other gyms.
Yes.
Okay.
But it
That's my
not
concern,
match
was
this
just-
one
yeah.
because personally, just me talking, it's way above the square foot requirements of MSBA. And that's a cost we would have to pay if we went down that road.
Right, so just a
And-
reminder
And the
that,
site is going to be an issue for them.
Yes, yes.
sorry, I didn't mean to-
Sorry.
Maybe I did see it wrong.
Just as a
Maybe I just
reminder
read
that
wrong.
6,000
They were
would
both
be,
purples.
Yeah.
6,000 would be the max reimbursement square footage from the MSBA.
Okay.
Right.
Anything above that would be out of the town's property.
So any of the schemes will have that 6,000 square foot
Okay.
gym to them.
And I think part of the discussion was that if the Howard School was utilized by the district or the town, that could be available space that's still there.
Okay, so the same exercise was done for the pre-K through 4. There, the reduction is less, it's about 5,000 square feet. Again, 1 less kindergarten space. Here it's 1 less classroom instead of 2. 4 resource rooms. It was determined it was right, 2 per upper school, 2 per lower school. So that's a reduction of 1 instead of 3. The small group rooms go with the reduction of classrooms, and here, still keeping 2 art spaces, which is what they had, what was in the program before this, and 2 music spaces, but again, reducing the ensemble space from 2 to 1. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next section unless anybody has any further questions about program reductions. Okay, I've already talked about this, so.
I'll go up here so I
Did it skip two slides?
No, I put these
You should.
first. Okay. But site plan, depends on their site, it's sort of gesture, but, now I'm gonna work through a progression of some test fits that we've done. So we have tonight we have a pre-K through 6 on 2 floors, pre-K through 6 on 3 floors, and a pre-K through 4 on 3 floors. And our purpose for kind of selecting those 3 to put in front of you tonight was to show a progression of pulling back the footprint of the building on the site. I think that's, the next challenge that we're seeing that we need to work through is now that we've had that reduced area that we can work with the wetlands that we know are on site, we now need to make sure things are fitting in there and what building can we fit and give you the best site layout, parking, room for playgrounds, and everything else that needs to go on the site along with the building. So in a pre-K through 6 on 2-floor scenario, you'll see on the site plan in a second, we are really maxing out what we can fit. We are, as James mentioned earlier, crossing over into the 100-foot buffer. We are able to do it staying outside of the 50-foot buffer, which is the sacrosanct one that we need to stay out of.
But it's a challenge, it's very tight.
Yeah. So we really are hugging right up against our buffers, because we do need to make sure that we have clearance for fire access around the building, so we're making sure that path also happens, and that roadway also has to happen outside of the 100-foot, or excuse me, outside of the 50-foot buffer. Within the outside of it. All of the plans that you'll see, we're also making sure we pay attention to what we heard from the educational visioning, that the scheme should be developed with having both an upper school and a lower school. So we're working to maintain separate entrances. Sorry, I'm standing in front of the key here. The red arrows are denoting entrance for upper school and the lower school. So in this plan, for a minute, we're stacking on this wing pre-K pre-K through 2nd grade and 3rd grade through 6th grade. The central zone has most of the music and art spaces and community spaces, gym. Administration is good adjacency to the school that it is part of.
So the gym is that purple space, yeah.
Is kindergarten on the 2nd floor?
Is in this scenario where it's more sprawling, because we're trying to be most compact of the footprint. The pre-K rooms and the kindergarten rooms are the same size, and they've all got the same number of toilets, so there's an efficiency to putting them both here. That's definitely conversation to be had. If that's a deal breaker, then we can look at, rejiggering some things and get pre-K and K on first.
I was remembering, just today, I was remembering when my son was about to go to kindergarten, getting a letter from the school saying, please make sure your kids have practice going up and down stairs. And taking them, not stopping 1 foot on the 2 feet on the same step. But, that was something we worked with.
I have a question about the bus access. The entrances are in the interior part. There's going to be, the buses are going to go around the outside, I understand.
It's not showing the internal parking and loop. Over the existing school will be parking and a drop-off and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, because I just didn't see any.
Showing yet, yeah.
Yeah, so right now, this is just showing a test fit of a roadway to make sure it's fitting around the building and outside of the wetlands buffer. All of this would still, and even, this would have some development to make sure that you're getting your loading access appropriately here. So more roadways would need to happen for actual student drop-off and
access
buses, yeah.
Bus, parking, playground, all of that still has to be developed.
So then if we move on to the pre-K to 6 on 3 floors, we've worked to have easy way to dice it up. It doesn't nicely slice the way it does when you're on 2 floors and you can even there we go, 4 and 4. When you're trying to squeeze that into 3, an odd number. Right now, we're showing a scheme where you can at least have pre-K, first and kindergarten, and 2nd grade then becomes upstairs. So you're at least still having a landing home base of the lower floor for this eastern part of the building, and the upper school kind of being able to take ownership of the western part of the building. Again, with the communal spaces, the gym, their dining happening in this central node of the building.
Is there more of the admin spaces in there? I saw lower admin and upper admin.
Yeah, so
What about
these-
district admin?
Not yet. Again, these are just initial
Okay.
estimates.
Yeah, so no district admin. Right now, the admin here is the upper, the lower, the nurse.
The big moves and.
Yeah.
So does a 3-floor building like that require that we have elevators, or are we able to make those gradual ramps to?
You'll have an elevator, no matter whether it's 2-story.
And one thing I just point out, in this area where we do have pre-K and K staff on this end of the building, what we were thinking about is that this could then become its own little pre-K, K world where it might have a nice, more gracious open stair, not just a fire stair access, so that it's more amenable to the little legs.
And maybe equally importantly, an entry to of its own, to just the little kid world,
Yeah.
right? Just not even the full lower school, but pre-K and K have its own entry.
So you can imagine here that you might even be able to add a 3rd, where this became pre-K and K entry, the rest of lower, some number of lower grades would come in through one entrance, and then the remainder of the upper grades through their own. So leading to that, let's give everybody a good home landing base in the building so that you don't feel overwhelmed as a 1st grader being mixed with the 6th graders. And then we took a look at the pre-K on 3 floors for the sake of it being then the most compact option, and we wanted to see that other end of the spectrum. So here you're again able to cleanly split into 2 halves. K, pre-K, K, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th on either wing of the building. Each can have their own entrance. Again, still sticking with the notion that all the communal spaces are happening within that center node of the building. And now this is really freeing up a lot of real estate to do lots of playground spaces, work with roadways and drop-offs, along with giving us more room to just work with the layout of the building.
And for construction logistics.
Yep.
That space is incredibly helpful. All of these can be achieved, but this is certainly a simpler construction process.
But that leaves us and how we break them up.
So let's talk about that. That is the next thing we're going to talk about. But actually, before we do, are there any other questions on the options?
Is there a lot of, I know we were talking about having a lot of space outside for like outdoor classrooms or whatever. Does either of those options leave room outside, enough room outside for playgrounds?
Yeah.
So in all of these,
Okay.
Yeah. In all of these, the whole Rose L building is now gone, and that's all site, because these schemes are all looking to form the building outside of the current building's footprint, so that they can still be going to school there. We build the building, then Right. it's torn down, and then that becomes your world of site and playgrounds.
So it's not only building, but it's parking areas as well. So
Right.
that's quite a big spot.
There's a lot that'll happen there. The way that the existing site has kind of confined, and we're kind of wrapping around the outer edge of it, is going to push a lot of that program out front as opposed to say out back. Not necessarily all of it, but that's where the big opportunity is, as you see in the diagrams, I think.
I have a question, and this may be too soon to even be thinking along these lines, but I know back when we did this school, there was a conversation about having the different doors as exits. But then we had an SRO start, and I feel like that changed in all of the entrances. Didn't that get slimmed down so that we only used one or two entrances instead of the multiples that we had set up?
So that happened across the industry, right around when this project would have happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a security.
You still have to, and you still have, well, we're showing 2 entries, and that is a management issue and can be discussed, and, you know, it may be that the decision is, no, we want to have everyone in one spot. We do, you know, a number of schools where there's 2 control points, especially when you have 2 administrations, you can have administration in each one. And I think that's mainly what you're asking about. There are, of course, egress doors through, you know, in various places.
This will be discussed more as we go through the
Oh,
design with our.
We've talked about it a lot at this point, about, hey, we're gonna have an entrance with this, and to get out to the tennis courts, and then we're gonna go over here.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't able to follow through just because of the times.
Yeah.
But at what point do we bring those considerations in as we're doing rough drafts?
Yeah,
Well,
and each-
if I can, so when this was originally developed, the security schematics and the methodology behind your points of entry, there were significant school shootings that happened after this was built or planned. Once that happened, as we just spoke industry-wide, you change your egress and your entrance. So I think when we get to the design point, we're all on point on how we want to funnel in and funnel out. To my knowledge, that ideology hasn't changed, just for monitoring purposes and security purposes. Not saying to look at a prison for the methodology. It's a one-door system, one in, one out. It's the safest place to get into.
Can we revisit prison children? No, just kidding.
I'm game. But I think the industry standard still has that as the model. I think the most you would look at would be 2, but again, that's with significantly larger schools. So look at your regional high schools, you know, your Taunton High, for instance, that has multiple points because that houses also more than one school. And as we get through it, I mean, we'll circle back, but the industry standard still is one in, one out.
It's also really common to have like very finite, the doors are open for arrival, and then everything's locked. It's not like the building's old days where, you know, random doors are open, everything's locked, there's alarm and contacts on all those doors. And then during the bulk of the school day, there is only one arrival point where somebody is like through a vestibule, they're held there until you know, I mean, there's a whole system that will be in place.
When this comes to fruition, we'll revisit, for instance, and I know I keep talking about the project you have currently going.
Yeah.
They have a bus drop point and they have a child drop-off point. And that seems to be very fluid. But also, the people that regulate those drop-offs are on point, so no one stays. And we're gonna have to have a very open conversation about the amount of parents that come an hour and a half early for drop-off. If we're now stacking these many grades and we're scaling our dismissals on entrance times, we have to do some conditioning where, you know, your older school kid, they can't be in the pickup line for the younger school dismissal. So again, those are things that we will talk about, but I think we kind of have a clear idea of what the security measures need to be. Now, 20 years, when none of us are here, could that change? Yeah, but for right here and now, for the project life, I don't see that changing for the planning purpose. And again, I think if we go with the funnel in, funnel out, 1 point, it's not going to lessen the amount of doors we have. And then in 10 years, say technology changes, schemes change, security measures change, well, you can loosen that up to maybe use those 3rd, 4th access doors.
Makes sense, thank you.
Anything else before we jump to Howard?
So So let me just make a comment before we go over this. So when I first saw the draft of this, my immediate reaction was, well, wait a minute, this isn't our issue. But it really is, in terms of the decision of whether or not we go with pre-K to 4, pre-K to 6. As a committee, while any scope of what to do with Howard after a pre-K to 4 decision is made is outside of us, we still have to go through the thought process of pre-K to 4 is the right decision for us to make, and we can still have a viable space for the 5th and 6th grade left over, even though any renovation of that school would not be part of our scope moving forward.
Okay. So this is a test fit. That's all this is. This isn't a design, right? This is just for a program for 150 fifth graders and 150 sixth graders, which is the maximum design enrollment that we're designing our new building for. Not what's there now, but that future enrollment. What within the program can fit and what can't. You can see that the 5th grade and 6th grade each have 6 classrooms. There's the existing somewhat undersized, 3,700 I think it is, square foot gymnasium, the existing cafeteria, what used to be the library space is here shown as special education. The art room is able to be repurposed back to being an art room. Right now it's a classroom. Same with the music room. A lot of the program fits, not all of it. What doesn't fit is the MSBA would have 13 classrooms for 300 students. So they would have this extra classroom for this bubble idea that we were talking about. The media center, the entirety of the media center, which is for our program broken out into certain spaces, but no library. And then some smaller, I won't say less critical, let's just say unstaffed, right? There's no one who owns those spaces, special education spaces. So no resource rooms, a couple of special education toilets. There would have to be ADA toilets within the existing building, small group rooms, and testing meeting spaces, some small testing meeting spaces. So the vast majority of the program fits. The big thing in my mind, and everybody should have their own opinion, but the big thing, of course, programmatically, is the lack of a library space.
We do have some additional space that we could take back as classroom spaces if we needed a bubble class, but I will say the classroom sizes at the Howard School are the smallest in the district. There's some variation in the classrooms, they're not all uniform the same size, but if you're talking 25 kids in a classroom, they are pretty tight compared to other classrooms. They're certainly below what an MSBA standard classroom would be now. Same thing for the cafeteria, you can fit
Exactly 130.
yeah. And that's pretty, if you've been in there, it's pretty tight.
Which is 4 under our current, we have 127 4th graders, and we just fit. If we get any more kids, we're putting tables in the lobby.
So it certainly passes the test of fitting, but it doesn't leave a lot of extra space in pretty confined space.
Well, passes the test of fitting minus this, right?
Right.
I'll also add, there are a number, like the classrooms, a number of spaces are really squeezing in. Some of the things that in special ed are not the full size that the program requested, but have a space designated.
I think maybe based on what we're talking about, what you said, Mark, one thing we can layer on this is just a hatch over undersized spaces. So it's clear that we're labeling it, but it's not the size that MSBA would say, just so that we all have that. Otherwise, you're going to be going, this one and this one and this one. We'll just do that, and then you can see that comparison.
Okay, that's good. Any questions on this?
So like, on this one, would the construction of this have to be done over the summer before the school opens back up.
There is no construction in this.
So
This is just,
It's not like.
does the fourth graders move out and the fifth graders take up more space?
But are you shuffling walls around and stuff?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Joe changes?
No,
This is.
Oh, okay. I thought you were shuffling, okay.
Differences.
No
It's not within our-
renovations, this
yeah.
isn't showing any.
Not within our scope.
We have
Yeah.
some petitions, for example, in the library right now that are, you know, soundproof, but they divide spaces. But they'll be, you could put the kids right in here.
And obviously theoretically, the town could go back to MSBA and try to get a project to do a renovation on Howard, so.
Okay.
You want to just click through for me, James, if there's no questions?
Sure. I do want to add, as we close the designer update, that our plan, based on what we showed today, is moving forward, we're going to be focusing our efforts on three-story options. The two-story really pushes out, in our minds, too much and creates some real challenges on the limited site that we have got. Any thoughts or questions on that?
It's obviously a necessity, but it's probably better at the Roselle site than it would be at Howard in terms of aesthetics, being off the road.
Do we need any different equipment or anything different in town in order to support a taller building?
All right. So I put together a quick, just visual representation of our budget. I know the first sheet that we reviewed is just an Excel sheet with numbers on it. So this kind of shows you our cash flow to date. We'll take a walk up here. Yep, there we go. So you can see the blue line going all the way up is the cumulative amount of funding for the feasibility, which is 1.2 million. The red line is what we've spent to date, which is between PMA and HMFH. It's about $327,000. And then the green line, or horizontal line, and the blue dotted line are both district forecast and MSBA forecasts. So yeah, we're about 327. It's just a different way to show it, which I wanted just to have the visual for everybody rather than just a spreadsheet at the beginning of our approval of invoices. And James, you can click along.
And while we're talking about budget, Kathy, you weren't here when we did the acceptance of the report, but I just wanted to make sure you have no red flags to report.
No red flags, we're all set.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. And then schedule, just a reminder, we are in the PSR phase, waiting on those comments from the PDP, but in the MSBA, we'll let everybody know when those are received. So no real update, just a reminder, we're at PSR, which I think we all know at this point. So next slide, please. Key dates, so we listed all the projected building committee dates, and the community forum we're targeting April 1st. I think that's the date we selected as of this point. And then we are looking to submit the PSR to the MSBA no later than May 1st to stay on schedule.
So Mark has sent out invitations for all these dates for the upcoming building committee meetings. I will highlight the fact that April 22nd date is school vacation week, but just like we did when we were working around the Thanksgiving holiday, when we get closer to that, we'll figure out, do we need that meeting? If we hold it that week, can we get a quorum, or should we perhaps push it out to the 29th? But it is recognized that right now is school vacation week, but we'll just leave it there for the time being, and we'll get a better sense of where we are and the need for that meeting as we get closer. You guys are very efficient, maybe we don't need the meeting.
All right, I think that's it for tonight. Next slide is just questions. Yeah, man.
Maybe I misunderstood something earlier. I thought there was going to be another public meeting before we did that last schematic report? Or was that something further on? We have Update April 1st, I thought there was one,
That's-
I thought I'd seen another one closer to the,
No, that was it, because that's,
So, all right.
that's to go over the preferred option. And then, obviously, we would do others as we get into the actual design.
There is the sustainability charrette, maybe what you're thinking of?
no, it was in, when you were going through, and it might have been that one, and I just thought it was closer, because I thought we had one basically right before we were gonna be going, one with the town to get their feelings on it right before we went to the final selection.
So that,
Or is that further down?
that is this, and I don't know why I have to point, but I do. So that's the April 1st, April Fool's Day, community forum. This is the SBC meeting where you'll vote on which one option we're going to move forward. And then this is the meeting where it's a little bit of a, formality, but this is the vote to submit to the NSBA.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Everybody clear on the schedule and some heavy lifting over the next few months? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Well, take your name cards with you.
I'm gonna take it.